From terrorist to hero, the true story of Nelson. What makes a man go from being labeled a terrorist to being celebrated as one of the greatest heroes of the 20th century? How does a prisoner, locked away for 27 years, emerge not seeking revenge, but ready to lead a nation toward peace and unity? This is not a legend. This is the true story of Nelson Mandela, the man who went from enemy of the state to father of a democracy. His journey redefined justice, courage, and forgiveness. To understand Mandela's rise, we must begin with apartheid, a brutal system of racial segregation in South Africa. Enforced by law from 1948 to the early 1990s, under apartheid, black South Africans were treated as inferior. They couldn't vote, live where they wanted, or access decent education and health care. It wasn't just discrimination. It was state-sponsored oppression. Nelson Mandela, born in 1918 in the village of Mavezo, grew up witnessing injustice firsthand. As he studied law and became politically active, he joined the African National Congress (ANC), a movement demanding racial equality. But peaceful protests were met with violence. Petitions and speeches were ignored. The regime grew harsher. Mandela and others began to believe that non-violence was no longer enough. In 1961, Mandela co-founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, which means Spear of the Nation. It was the armed wing of the ANC created not to target civilians, but to sabotage government infrastructure. Mandela's plan was bold: damage the system, not the people. In 1962, Mandela was arrested. At first, the charges were minor inciting strikes and traveling illegally. But in 1963, a raid at a farm in Rivonia uncovered documents linking him to sabotage. He was tried for treason, and instead of denying the charges, Mandela stood up in court and said, "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." Mandela was sentenced to life in prison and sent to Robben Island, a place designed to break men. He slept on the floor. He crushed rocks under the sun. He was only allowed one visitor every 6 months. But prison didn't destroy Mandela, it refined him. Over 27 years, he became a symbol. Silent giant whose absence screamed louder than any protests. Around the world, people rallied behind him. Free Nelson Mandela became a global movement. Inside prison, Mandela studied, negotiated with guards, and maintained his dignity. He refused to be reduced to hatred. He believed the real enemy wasn't the white man, it was the system of apartheid itself. Real change takes time, and real leaders are forged in the fire of patience. In 1990, under growing international pressure and internal unrest, Nelson Mandela was released. The world held its breath. Mandela chose forgiveness. He called for peace, not punishment. His message was clear: if we do not forgive, we will remain prisoners of our past. 4 years later, Mandela became the first black president of South Africa, elected in the country's first democratic election. But he didn't lead with anger. He led with unity. He formed a government of national unity, including both blacks and whites. He created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, allowing victims and perpetrators to come forward, not for punishment, but for healing. A broken nation can't be rebuilt with more hate. Nelson Mandela didn't just free South Africa, he redefined leadership. He showed the world that dignity and forgiveness could be more powerful than vengeance and violence. He served only one term as president, proving that leadership is not about power but service. He became a global ambassador for peace, working to end poverty, AIDS, and inequality. He won the Nobel Peace Prize, shared with former President F.W. de Klerk, the man who helped end apartheid. Mandela's legacy wasn't built on perfection. It was built on resilience, humility, and love. He once said, "I am not a saint, unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying." Mandela died in 2013. But his story lives on in every activist who speaks out, in every peaceful protest, and in every leader who chooses hope over hatred. He proved that one man can change the world if he's willing to change himself first. Nelson Mandela's life was not a straight path to greatness. It was messy, painful, and filled with impossible choices. He was labeled a terrorist, imprisoned for nearly 3 decades, and yet he chose unity over revenge, forgiveness over fury, hope over hatred. And that's why he became more than a president. He became a symbol. Today, in a world that still struggles with division, injustice, and fear, we need Mandela's example more than ever. Not just in politics or protests, but in our families, workplaces, and personal lives. Where can you be the bridge instead of the fire? Forgive instead of retaliate. This story moved, you don't let it end here. Leave a comment below. What part of Mandela's story impacted you the most? Like this video to help share his legacy. Subscribe for more true stories that inspire action, not just emotion. Because one voice, one choice, can change history, just like Mandela's did.